Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to History Being Made Right Before Your Eyes. This is the SASI Debate Challenge, and this is the 8th edition, supported by SEAL, SAYWHAT Events and Lifestyle Services, courtesy of the Nyaradzo Group, and brought to you by Say What. And I am your debate master. You can call me Master Jumbe. I have the honor and prestigious gift of being joined by these amazing, intelligent individuals who have come across from all over the nation to provide us with their understanding, their ideological frameworks, as well as their skills in argumentation and eloquence. Let's see if they can speak as good as they look, and if they have what it takes to be true SASI debate champions. Don't forget, our hashtag is SASI8, know and act. Don't forget to follow us on our various social media platforms. So, with enough waffling, let's get into the true Bronx of today. I will now be requesting introductions from these various individuals, as well as what institutions they are representing. Starting from podium number 1.
Good evening, viewers. I am Tinashe with my partner Charlene. We are from Bindura University of Science Education.
That's brilliant. Thank you. And at podium number 2.
Hi, everyone. My name is Chakuzo, and my partner is Polite, and we're coming from Marindra University of Agricultural Sciences and Technology.
That's lovely. Is she only your debate partner?
Pardon?
Is she only your debate partner?
Well, what does it look like?
You never know. That's for the people at home to tell us. Like us in the comments and tell us a bit more. And on podium number 3, who do we have?
Hi, everyone. I'm Dorcas Nomsa Chirango from Catholic University of Zimbabwe.
And I am Gift Konesi from Catholic University.
Glory to God. Look at the gift that God has given us today. Hey, who else do we have today? And who is on podium number 4?
Hi everyone, my name is Kayleen, my partner is Moza, we're from the Midland State University. Thank you.
That's amazing. So you have heard these individuals and the institutions that they are representing. So I need to do my job correctly. Hence, I'll be contextualizing and providing you with the necessary information and a bit of entertainment throughout this entire debate. So, today's debate will follow a British parliamentary style and format, inclusive of 4 teams, 2 teams proposing one ideology and the other 2 teams opposing it. Now, each speaker has been allocated only 4 minutes to prepare their speeches, and moreover, they must deliver them in the most eloquent way possible. Points will be awarded for eloquence as well as delivery. Hence, it is very much encouraged that the necessary research should not be dependent on the papers, but dependent on the minds and expression of these candidates as well. So now, when it comes to your POIs, or your points of information, it will just be a matter of you raising your hand, and within 15 seconds, please do deliver your point of information as briefly as possible, so that we can have a safe, yet competitive environment. With all being said, I think it's time for us to get into the motion for today's debate. The motion reads as follows. This House believes that family planning should be universally free at the point of access, regardless of a country's fiscal constraints. I shall repeat the motion once more. This House believes that family planning should be universally free at the point of access, regardless of a country's fiscal constraints. The motion has been read. The candidates are ready. I think you know what time it is. It's time for us to seal the deal. Welcome back to the 8th edition of the SASI Debate Challenge. I'm joined over here from students from MSU, the Catholic University, as well as so many other institutions, and they're ready to provide us with their understanding. They are here to stand as advocates for those that don't have the ability to voice their own opinions. They're here to be the necessary change that they want to see. Not complaining, but advocating for change, revolution, and success. And that's exactly what we stand for today. So I will no longer be talking to mere students, but honorable members, prime ministers, and delegates. So, will the Honorable Prime Minister please come to the stand and provide us with their stance? Thank you.
Panel, first thing we tell you in this debate is that we think this debate mainly happens in underdeveloped countries, right? That is the first thing that we tell you in this debate, right? Also, we need to really have an appreciation of what family planning actually looks like, right? We think family planning looks like access to having things like morning after pills, having things like condoms, and many contraceptives methods that are available to stop unwanted pregnancies and to reduce the birth rate that is happening within a country, right? We also think that fiscal constraints, right, looks like loopholes within the economic structure of a country, right, in terms of like finances, which then leads to like the country having to cut some budget in terms of how they distribute those funds, right? Moving on to what we think should really be prioritized in this debate. We think this debate is basically a debate of development, right? We think the idea in this debate is to justify why we think that most countries are not at a point in time in which they're able to provide like free family planning, right? But also to actually justify why we think that development in and of itself is progressive, and this is then how we show you our case. Firstly, we tell you that investment in health is a lifetime investment. Whilst you invest in health, right, you ensure that the results that you're going to get, they're going to be ongoing for the entire lifetime, right? This is not something that just comes for a short period of time. What do we tell you this? We tell you this because we think that social development is of priority, right? We don't think a country is going to reach a point in time in which it's just going to wake up developed, right? We think there's a lot that needs to be put in terms of developing a country, right? So at that point, we think it is very essential for us to prioritize social development, right? We think the point of fiscal policies is to ensure the growth of economic development, right? Economic development in and of itself is more successful when we've achieved or pushed to achieve social development, right? The way we can achieve this is to make sure that there is access of family plannings, right? How then do you make sure that this access is there? You make sure that this access is there by making family planning free in hospitals and in local clinics so that local people can access this family planning. We think this is important within this debate. Why? Because the moment you contain the population that is available in a country, you are able to deal with a workable population, right, in terms of then how you proceed with the development, right? That is point number one. Point number two, we think you protect the lives of the women that are directly being impacted by the idea of family planning, right? We think in underdeveloped countries, we have encountered a lot of things like obstetric fistula, right? Because people are continuously giving birth, right? As a result, you see that there are higher mortality rates in terms of like how they are their maternal deaths like increasing by each year, right? We think this is problematic because people are not actually gaining that access to meaningful family planning, right? We think at a point in time in which you provide that access, you make sure that you reduce those deaths. And once you reduce those deaths, you make sure that there is enough manpower to then contribute to the economic development that you want to ensure that is going to be there in the long run, right? So we think at this point, this plan is actually more effective because it caters for the long run and for the long run and how things are going to wake up at the end, right? We think you also reduce the idea of unwanted teenage pregnancies, right? We think children are dropping out of school because there's lack of access to family planning, right? Because you have to buy this family planning, right? How then are you going to tell your parents that you need money to go and buy family planning, right? We think when there's access to this family planning for free, you reduce those teenage pregnancies. And when you reduce them, it means that brain power that you need to develop the country at the end of the day is going to be available. And that economic development that you're so worried about is going to be achieved at the end of the day. So I think this debate is majorly on why we think it's true for us to prioritize social development over economic development. Because we think it takes a lot of time to actually achieve that economic development. And for you to make sure that it's effective, you need to make sure that the people are socially fit and they have access. With this, I'm proud.
Thank you very much, Madam Prime Minister. As you can see, the stage has already been set, and it's quite fascinating to see the pace that we're moving with at the moment. However, at this point in time, I would like to hear from the opposition leader. May they please make their way forward to the stand.
Hello, everyone. We are here to defend the market mechanisms, arguing against universal free access. We have literally come with a core conflict that states that the core conflict in this debate is the unconditional human right versus the reality of scarcity, ladies and gentlemen. Hereby, we are saying that the government's absolutist principle is a dangerous fantasy, ladies and gentlemen, highlighting the fact that I was pointing out when I said abracadabra, ladies and gentlemen. When I say abracadabra, ladies and gentlemen, we're not dealing with something that just pops out of the blue and we're starting to say we are implementing this strategy, ladies and gentlemen. We come down to say that, in principle, sorry, apologies for that. We come down to say that when we are arguing as the opposition, we're arguing that while the ideal of free access is laudable, ignoring the fiscal reality is a recipe for disaster. They will contend that in severely resource-constrained countries, insisting on a free-for-all model without any mechanism for cost recovery could lead to the collapse of the entire system, ultimately harming the very people the government seeks to help, ladies and gentlemen. I am proud to oppose this motion, as I say that the opposition stands on the firm belief that the no free lunch principle, ladies and gentlemen, an unsustainable model in fragile systems. The government's motion is a masterclass in idealism, completely discharged from reality in a country like Zimbabwe, ladies and gentlemen. We want to be real. We want to realize realism in Zimbabwe. You don't come and implement free access in a country that is 100% donor-supported, ladies and gentlemen. You may want to argue that the fiscal policy of this is rather minor to this debate, ladies and gentlemen. But then I come to say that the fiscal matter is rather of importance than anything else, ladies and gentlemen. As you can relate to 2008, ladies and gentlemen, anything that is provided for free, it therefore brings doubts, it therefore brings people to question, why is it so cheap? Why is it free, ladies and gentlemen? Which brings me to the next point that I'm going to actually be standing on, which says the perverse effect of free services on perceived quality and uptake. There is a well-documented phenomenon where services provided for free are perceived by all users as being of low quality. Users may distrust the efficacy of free contraceptives. When we're talking about efficacy, ladies and gentlemen, how effective are they when they're trying to deal with this problem at hand, which is contraception, ladies and gentlemen? People can start to be skeptical about this, start to doubt it, and all that, ladies and gentlemen. I proceed to the last and third argument, ladies and gentlemen, which therefore says a dogmatic stance prevents pragmatic and more equitable solutions, ladies and gentlemen, whereby I'm saying the government's absolutist position, free for all, no exceptions, prevents the implementation of a more nuanced, sustainable, and ultimately more equitable financing models, ladies and gentlemen. And with this, I stand to say my following speaker will take out the points and expatiate on them further. Thank you.
Thank you very much to the leading opposition delegate. I will now allot this time to the Deputy Prime Minister to make their case known. May they please come forward to the stand.
Okay, panel. The current status quo is characterized by 1, inflation, right? 2, diseases, preferably those that are associated with how the population is escalated in itself, right? 3, child pregnancies are on the edge and they are on this upsurge, right? And in this falling economy, which is hypothetically astonishing to hear that as it exists and everyone knows, right? So this is a direct relation to the overpopulation, and overpopulation that we can control by how we as individuals are going to react to the issue of family planning, right? So looking at this and in relation to the physical to the fiscal policies that are associated with us, Zimbabwe, as part of the development countries, as my speaker had said, we really believe that family planning should be universally free at the point of access, regardless of the country's fiscal constraints, right? Fiscal constraints is already defined and is already articulated by my partner. It was something that it is an effect or an upsurge of how the disconformities are going to affect our own economy, right? So, with respect to that, why are we saying we believe that, right? We believe, my partner said, investment in health is an investment in a lifetime. It is an investment in life. Why and how? To control the country's population, panel, we need to control the country's population. How can we do it? We can only do it by using the point of access, which is whenever we want to start an argument, we are going to implement, we are going to see the root cause, which is family planning. Overpopulation is directly or co-directly related to how family planning should be taken into consideration. And one, we want to control population which affects the economy, and we want to control these diseases that are arising from the population, right? Panel, we understand that in fact, we actually have gender policies that are in fact, and these gender policies are going only to be functional if we actually have another branch of population services control, where we want to control and give these people some free access. We have many people who are becoming victims of unwanted pregnancies, panel, because they lack access to this family planning in a nutshell. So we want to protect the women at large so that they can prosper. They can prosper by how? By unwanted pregnancy. Early child marriages are resulting to early pregnancies, which might affect how some people are going to progress, panel. And we think that is a problem that arises firstly from the lack of contraception itself. So in a struggling economy, we believe that we should also prioritize how we offer this free access to family planning and how we are going to handle it, right? So it is better to have a budget that directly relates to family planning before the population gets out of hand. And this is what we believe as a delegation, right? So our stakeholders, as mentioned before, we have the women who are in question as the people who are directly related to how family planning and its effects are going to be very diabolical, right? And we think that they are the backbone of the social development of the country, right? And it being that they are the backbone of the social development, we believe that without the women, without their rights and all these policies that are inclusive to how they generate the babies, how they make babies, it is only a matter of us respecting how the family planning starts, as they are going to plan properly how they are going to do, right? So, panel, once all is done, we want to reduce teenage pregnancies, unwanted pregnancies, as we believe as a delegation, and we want to work hand in hand in promotion of the gender policies, the revised policies that are in this country, right? So we ought to make family planning a chance, and we ought a choice, not a circumstances, rightly on the economy and their policies. With this, I rest.
Thank you very much, Honorable Prime Minister. At this point in time, I will now ask for the Deputy Leader of the Opposition Delegation to come forward and make known their stand.
Ladies and gentlemen, the government's stance is moral, but based on a profound misunderstanding of economics. They clearly stated that they're limiting the scope of this debate to underdeveloped countries. Now, in reality, underdeveloped countries are characterized by low income, low GDP, inflation, current instability, and the syndrome of donor dependency. Most of the developing countries, ladies and gentlemen, health systems are already at the verge of collapse. So you are undermining the fact that fiscal constraints actually matter. Free services require trained staff, supply chain, and logistics, not just policy. Ladies and gentlemen, let's face reality. For example, taking Zimbabwe as an underdeveloped country, Zimbabwean clinics can't afford gloves and bandages. Let's not idealize it. It remains only but a phantom promise. Now, the government say that they want to ensure development, but how do you ensure development? By lying to the people, by telling them that they should be focusing on idealism, when in actual fact they should be focusing on reality. Now, my opposition leader came here and actually provided an alternative on how we can navigate the system, how we can ensure that family planning is taken at a high level, rejected. We have the cost recovery model, which we can implement. Ladies and gentlemen, now I want to reiterate my case by stating why we say that the universal free access is unfeasible, not just unfeasible, but absolutistic. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we know that amid donor withdrawals, the countries should have a sustainable system that can utilize the health system when donors withdraw. When the USA decides to withdraw, when you have implemented that, there will be universally free access of family planning. What are you going to do? Clearly, you cannot sustain the health system. Denied, you had your chance, honorable member. Now, I want to move on to my second point, where the perceived effect of free services on perceived quality in uptake. Ladies and gentlemen, let's take this from a social perspective. People often tend to question the efficacy. They often question the effectiveness of services that are offered for free. Not just this, ladies and gentlemen, but let's look at the reality. If we were saying that we are offering family planning for free in all points of access, what is going to happen? The government clearly did not think about the repercussions of the model, of the infeasible model that they are representing. Ladies and gentlemen, there will be stockouts of pills in hospitals, there will be corruption, and people will generally misuse the funding that we have. Ladies and gentlemen, I stand here to tell you that this approach that the government has is not only feasible, but it is absolutistic. They have a profound misunderstanding of economics. They came here telling us that we are focusing on underdeveloped countries, but how are you supposed to effectively ensure that we have universally free access? Ladies and gentlemen, the government must first resuscitate their health systems. They must equip the hospitals and clinics with family planning. It has been working. We have reduced maternal mortality rates already in Zimbabwe. So we are saying, first, resuscitate those clinics that we have already, not just implement a new system, denied, not just implement a new system that is not feasible. Let's face reality, ladies and gentlemen. And with that, I'm proud to oppose the motion.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. As you can see it back home, every single thing that we're talking about over here is not something that's quite foreign in any way. As you can see, there's quite the indigenous amount of examples that are coming out. This is because family planning and contraception is not a conversation that should be taboo in any way, but one that we should have more often. One that I should dare say should become universal. Well, stay tuned because we have so much more concerning this debate. So, we'll see you right after the break. Welcome back to the 8th edition of the SASI Debate Challenge, and I am your debate master, and you can call me Master Jumbe. I'm here to deliberate, provide some entertaining commentary, but also ensure that everything is running as smoothly as possible. But that rarely happens in a debate, does it? There's always emotions of clashes and contention. That being said, without further ado, I would like to call upon the respectable speaker, the member of government, to come forward and provide their stance.
I know that many of you have concerns about the future. I assure you that your voices are heard, and we are committed to addressing those concerns head on. But before I do that, I want to clarify something on the leader of the opposition, I mean the deputy leader of the opposition. I'm going to explain deeper what the deputy and the prime minister was trying to tell you. So, we as today's proposition have structured our case as follows. The House believes that family planning should be universally free at the point of access, regardless of a country's fiscal constraint. First and foremost, I guess, I know the Prime Minister explained that this House believes that the countries we are mentioning are underdeveloped countries, and we all agree on that. And she also mentioned that investment in healthy is lifetime investment. So we need to know that family planning should be free and it should be universally free at the point of access, regardless of the country's fiscal constraints. I guess maybe you didn't get what fiscal constraints means. The deputy mentioned that fiscal constraints means the lack of adequate funds. So we're talking about underdeveloped countries here who have lack of adequate funds. So why are we saying family planning should be universally free? The first point is, I mentioned 2 points already when I said it is investment in health is lifetime investment. And the second one is, so I'm going to mention the points which was said by the deputy minister and the prime minister, and I'll add my 1 point so that my fellow honorable member will understand. The deputy minister mentioned that family planning should be universally free. Why? To protect women from mortality deaths and unnecessary births. We also need to make sure that family planning is available so as to control the population. The population is, when we say we want to control the population, it means it's over. So we need to control it. Also, the deputy minister mentioned that when the population is controlled, the economy is controlled too. And when we focus on economic development, we are also prioritizing social development. So I guess you have understood. But I'm going on my last point now. Rejected. So my point is, family planning should be universally free at the point of access, regardless of the country's fiscal constraints. Why? And what do we need to do so that it will be universally free? I'm suggesting that a small percent of taxpayer money should be allocated towards the provision of family planning at all points of access, which include pharmacies, public and private hospitals, clinics, etc. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, the respectable honourable speaker. We will now hear from the opposing delegation and one of their members. May they please come forward to the stand.
Panel, to summarize the first half of the debate, it was centered on scarcity and free access, where affirmative was arguing based on free access of resources. Now, panel, we want to create a case in which you get to understand that when we offer things for free, there is going to be an effect. This effect is going to be called the third buyer effect. Now, with the third buyer effect, we think that there is bound for misuse of resources because people are not paying for these resources, right? What does misuse of resources look like? It looks like people just getting resources for free, and they will go and get some more resources. Why? Because they can get them for free, right? So what we can give as, like, in terms of free access, we think that we can give people free access around disseminating information on how to control birth. This works. Why? Because it is a better solution. What we cannot give for free right now is family planning, right? Where we are saying that we are living in an environment where our resources are constrained. We are living in an environment where donors have pulled out, right? And we think that when we offer things for free from a government perspective that doesn't have the money to provide for, it is problematic in our case, right? Pane, we think that the physical constraints that have happened, right? And then the misuse then comes in, and we think that it is a problem, right? Now, how does this apply into our context, right? We think that when NGOs pull out fundings, right, there's been a gap, not just in family planning, but on the overall health sector, right? We think that we can ought to prioritize other things and give these things for free, but not family planning. Why? Because we think that when people get family planning for free, we get to have people that get these family planning pills, sell them in other countries, or even sell them to other people that cannot get them. Panel, understand that when we get this family access, family planning, right, for free, we are bound to have like long-term impact where we are saying that our resources are going to be depleted. We think that there is going to be a problem. Why? Because the government will have to select people to give this family planning for free. And those that can gain access to get family planning for free will misuse it, and then the third buyer effect kicks in, right? Now, panel, it is better to pay for family planning, right? How do we pay for family planning? We think that we allocate a certain sum or a certain amount that the government will allocate certain sums of our amount that will cover manufacturing costs and transportation costs, right? This won't be expensive, panel. We think that this won't be expensive, but just to cushion and make sure that the government is not strained in this economy that we exist. We think that when people pay for something, it is bound to eradicate the misuse of resources. It is bound to eradicate the case where people just go in and get resources which they do not entirely need, right? Panel, so now that I've explained this, we think that open government's case based on economics is flawed. Why? Because we don't get how we save resources when we offer them for free, panel. Because as we have explained, we say that misuse and then they offer resources for free. We don't get to save these resources, right? So we are saying that the government still has to pay for manufacturing, and basically economics will tell you that we cannot offer something for free when we cannot provide, like, cover manufacturing costs and everything, right? And we think that is problematic, right? As I have mentioned before, we think that free access can only happen in situations like we disseminate information, we hope people understand how birth control works in their favor, and that we think that we can feed into their case of social capital, panel, and we think that that's the best notion. So, panel, what we are genuinely saying as a delegation, we are saying that when the third buyer effect comes in, people get things for free, they misuse them, and we cannot afford to misuse things in this situation. Why? Because we do not have the things, we do not have the resources, and when we misuse them, it becomes problematic into our world. And with this panel, we think that family planning should not be given for free. Why? Because it triggers the third buyer effect and misuse occurs. With this, I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Speaker. May the government whip please come forward and present their case.
Good day, members of the House. I, as government whip of the closing government, I'm going to support the opening government and the policy stating that family planning supporting the policy that family planning should be universally free at the access points to at the point of access, regardless of the country's fiscal constraints. As the Prime Minister said, firstly, it happens to underdeveloped countries where there are a lot of child pregnancies. So to avoid that, we should promote the use of contraceptives, and many communities cannot afford contraceptives. By distributing contraceptives freely, this would prevent child pregnancies, and like the Prime Minister also said, it would also prevent death through childbearing from children. The Deputy Prime Minister also said that child pregnancies are high, and investment is a lifetime. Investment in health is a investment in a lifetime. This means that if we invest once, it will take us a long way. It is not only going to show us results right now, but it will help us manage our economy, because population control also helps the government control the economy through supply and demand. And as the member of government said, allocating a percentage of tax to support fiscal constraints will make a difference. This would allow the government to gain more funds, not just from NGOs and other donors, but as a country, we will have our own source of income through taxpayers' money. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, I urge each member of this House to join me in supporting this vital initiative. Together we can create our nation a better place. Thank you.
Thank you very much to the government whip. As has been spoken of before, when it comes to African nations, one of the critical issues we faced is just the issue concerning our contraception. We see in multiple developed nations how they've found ways to critically and reasonably and sustainably manage the health issues in those particular nations concerning contraception. As Africa, we are here at this very moment at the precipice of something brilliant: dialogue. Dialogue to change the status quo and have things in a different manner. The question is to you back at home, how will you change the health systems within Africa? Will you be the minister of the future to provide equitable and universal health care as well as contraception, or will you withhold the funding for yourself? The question is now, will you be the change that you want to see within your community? As this debate begins to come to a close, I now call upon the opposing whip to come forward and grant us their remarks. Thank you.
Panel, there are three things that we all agree on in today's room. First of all, we all hate child pregnancies. Secondly, we all want to curb an unplanned population boom. And thirdly, we all think investment in health is a lifetime investment. Now, who gets to win today's debate? The team that gets to win today's debate is a team that proves to you that availability of family planning can be sustained and will be sustained. The team that shows you that we are going to be able to access family planning in the long run should get to win today's debate. Now, what do we hate as the closing opposition? We hate all forms of plans that are short-term. Hence, we provide you with a long-term plan. We tell you, panel, that both benches of the government have ignored the current status quo. The current status quo is the problem of scarcity that is starting to rise, which means that we think that in a period of maybe, let's say, 5 years, we think that we're going to run out of family planning, which means that we will not be able to make any sort of revenue or even give this for free. So in an instance where we give these family planning methods for free now, we think that we won't be able to provide them and they won't be able to be accessible at any point in a few years from now. Hence, that is what we want to keep from our side of the house. Understand, panel, that our extension that Musa gives you in today's debate debate is the misuse of family planning that is currently happening on the status quo. We think that panel, because family planning is currently so readily available, people are just taking family planning for granted, such as people who are storing boxes of condoms in their houses. Some are even taking these tablets and selling and making a profit out of that. That is what we want to curb. We think the reason why people are doing all that is because they don't see the value and the importance of this family planning, because they are not personally investing in them. We think in an instance where we get people to actually pay for these family planning methods, we then get them to take them seriously, and we then get one person only 30 pills a day instead of people going to sell them, right? Now, it can be a question of, oh, well, we don't think people can be able to get money to buy these, hence we think they won't be accessible. But we tell you, panel, that what the model that Musa brings to you in today's debate is a subsidized system where the government gets to subsidize these, and we think that means that the government is going to be able to continue procuring. Yes, continued procurement means that we're going to continue to have family planning in the long run, which is what we think is important. Understand that on the side of the government side panel, we're most likely to cap unplanned pregnancies or to cap an unplanned population boom for a limited period of time, which is what we had. On our side of the house, we introduced to you, panel, a sustainable case. We introduced to you, panel, a sustainable plan. A sustainable plan that says that even in an instance where all NGOs pull out of developing countries and say that, oh, we're now unable to fund, we're still able to procure because we have this revenue that we have been building. And that is what we value. That is what we think is important. Continued ensuring long-term sustainability of availability of family planning methods. Now, how are we different from our opposition? Understand, panel, that our opposition focus mainly on the immediate scarcity as well as how people distrust free things. But on our side of the world, we tell you, panel, that when this family planning methods become free, we think that people are going to take advantage and people are going to misuse them, which is what we want to keep on our side of the world. Understand, panel, that the current status quo, the current problem that exists on the status quo is scarcity that is approaching. And we're out to come up with a plan that solves that scarcity, not just now, but also in the long term. Hence, panel, we get to win today's debate because we're the only house in today's debate that understands the problems that are currently existing and also bring you a solution to solve them in the long-term run. Thank you.
Thank you very much, opposing whip. This undoubtedly finally now concludes today's debate session. Everything that we saw here was absolutely magical and quite electrical. I feel like a piece of metal. The way every single debate was so magnetic. All these points were quite interesting. But now it's time for us to hear the true performances and the degree of the caliber and the standard that we participated in today. I wish I was afforded the ability to choose who the true victors are today, but that's not up to me. That's up to our lovely adjudication panel. And now we'll go on a short break, so stay tuned, don't go anywhere. We're going to allow them to participate in deliberations. See you right after the break. And we're back at the 8th edition of the SASI Say What Debate Challenge. And I'm joined by some very interesting individuals. So, how are you today, Podium 1? How are you feeling about the debate so far? You're raising your hand quite a few times. You feel like you're not being heard?
Yeah, I'm feeling ecstatic, one. Then two, I feel like I needed more ample time.
Understand that. I wish that we all had more time, don't we? Truly.
Okay.
Podium 2, what are your emotions concerning today's debate?
Well, the rarity of me being in my emotions, but then for the first time it happened. And yeah, it was quite timid, but then nonetheless, I think we'll recover and we'll actually get a good standing. Because as I said earlier, first place is always going to be better than second place.
Very true.
Yeah.
So how did your emotions get hold of you this time? And how can we avoid such in the future?
It was just something that was just out of cue. Unexpected, of course, but then nonetheless, we progress and we continue, yeah?
That's true. Lovely indeed. And what are your emotions concerning today's debate? The first timers that are coming back with quite the bang. Hopefully you make it to the next round too. How are you feeling today?
I'm feeling wonderful. The atmosphere was tense, it was thick, but we aired it out as a first timer.
Very true. Lovely. And on podium number 4, how are you feeling about today's debate? I understand. I guess the teams were showing me flames. I thought I was the only one seeing flames. I guess everyone else is experiencing it too. Okay. Let's say if you were to be the Minister of Health right now, what are the policies that you would shift within the dynamic and the status quo? Podium number 1, any policies in your mind?
Okay, as the Minister of Health, in a country where people are facing a high rate of taxation, which means the money is already there, but it's misappropriated, I would just take the money and do a reallocation of the same funds that we have in our taxation votes and direct it to health so that we can have better health facilities as well as a better education system on the SR, HR areas that affect the health as well.
Spoken like a true health minister. And you on podium 2, any policies in mind?
Yes, so I would specifically change on the gender policies that we have implemented as a country because most of them are primarily centered on women. We've seemed to turn a blind eye on men, creating a health system that is not responsive to men's needs. So I would change the policies and provide a more holistic approach that integrates everyone, men, women, yeah.
Very true. I was recently doing a legal thesis on male rape, and you realize that there's such a lack of understanding when it comes to such issues and a lack of support socially, as well as when it comes to health resources. We truly need better policies to support all genders. Indeed. And on podium number 3, how do you feel concerning today's debate, and what kind of policies would you encourage as the Ministers of Health?
I would promote the use of contraceptives because the issue is really intense. If you go around in the rural areas, you see children as young as 11 years with a big belly, and it's not a pleasant sight. I would promote and make sure that contraceptives are available at low prices, in fact freely.
Wow, we need that. Complementary contraception. We would love that. And on podium number 4, as the Ministers of Health, what would you do?
As a Minister of Health, I would first want to try and justify the historical imbalances, get women to be able to give birth for free.
I like that. Very true, very true. Such a good policy. Now, the final question before we get the necessary results, I would like to question, if you had the ability right now to become the United Nations Secretary General, would you believe that investing in Zimbabwe's health sector would allow for a more stable economy? Or should he redirect and reallocate the funding? Should the WHO be investing within Zimbabwe's health sector? Or should they reallocate to a different country? Is Zimbabwe worth investing in? Podium number 1, any thoughts?
Okay, I think it's very important for the World Health Organization to be directly investing in Zimbabwe. Because if you want to look at it personally, I think a lot of brain power comes from Zimbabwe, right? So in terms of like how people are not having access to health, you find out that there are high mortality rates. So we think the world at large is losing a lot of people with capacity to change the world. So I think it is very important for us to invest in Zimbabwe because we have the brain power.
Very true. There's so much brain drain. Some of the best doctors in the world are Zimbabwean, but they're not practicing within Zimbabwe. On podium number 2, any thoughts? Should they be investing in Zimbabwe?
Well, I think the mandate that WHO has is literally to extinguish any problems that may actually arise in the health sector worldwide, yeah? And we do commend the fact that Zimbabwe faces a problem. So it's justified that they invest into it.
Very true. And what is the health sector getting right or wrong when it comes to investment? Would you invest in the health sector of Zimbabwe on podium number 3?
Oh yes, I would, but I would take a different approach. I would create infrastructure and industries that provide the resources and the medication, may it be gloves or ARVs, all those plants would be manufactured and it would help the economy and the change to happen.
On podium number 4, any interest in investing within the health sector?
But I think if we invest in Zimbabwe's health sector, we can deal with issues around maybe migration to other countries because people are seeking better living conditions and better health conditions. We think that when we invest in Zimbabwe's health sector, there is no need to fly to maybe Sweden or Finland to get cancer treatment. We can only get it locally.
Lovely. Quite the discussion that we're having over here. I'm loving every single moment of it. However, unfortunately, all good things must come to an end. Just like when you're feeling healthy and happy, there's always that time where flu will just strike you out of nowhere, unfortunately. So now, let us get to the results of this debate. Now, I wish I had the honor of giving you the medals and the trophies that you all deserve for such an enthralling performance. However, now, this is time for the results. And I hand this over to the chief adjudicator of this round. Thank you.
I'm surprised Mr. Jumbe says when you've been healthy and happy, the flu will strike you out of nowhere. I guess I'm the flu. All right, so I'll be announcing the results of this particular debate round, which we think is quite important and sensitive, particularly in the climate that we're living in. We think that this particular debate was a below average to average debate. We think there was a lot more analysis that we could have had from the teams. And perhaps it's something that we can discuss after this particular round if you guys would like some feedback. But coming in 4th place is closing government. In 3rd place is the opening opposition. In 2nd place is closing opposition. And coming in 1st is the opening government. Thank you.
Well, you've heard the results. Congratulations to the teams proceeding. And to the other teams, don't worry, this is merely a learning curve. So much more is possible in the future. I hope that you had a brilliant time on this edition of the 8th SASI Debate Challenge, brought to you by Say What. I've been your debate master. Just remember the name, Master Jumbe. And we'll see you next time. Goodbye.
I look up in the sky, God is my angel. I look up in the sky, God gonna save me. I've got a vision, so I gotta work on it. Hey. Nobody bring me down, so I gotta go, gotta go.
I got a dream, when you know you have a dream.
Work, work, work.
I got a dream, when you know you have a dream.